listeners, and welcome to Sailing and Cruising the East Coast of the United States podcast. Today we have a special guest for you. It's not going to be our normal format with just Mike and I chatting. We have a guest. His name is Mike Malekoff, and he emailed me. He's one of our listeners, and he emailed me about his boat, which happens to be a Hunter 44 Dexalon, very similar to the boat I have. And he had a question about his boat, and we exchanged some emails. And during that conversation, I came to realize that he'd be an interesting guest for the show. So I invited him on the show, and we did an interview. And it really was good. I'm glad that I invited him. He bought his boat 2 years ago, just at the beginnings of the COVID crisis, kind of before boat prices really escalated. He bought his boat in Maine, and he keeps his boat on Lake Champlain, which is about 120 or so mile long lake that borders between New York State and Vermont. And we've sailed there a fair amount. We have chartered boats up there, and that's sort of where we first got into chartering larger boats, was on Lake Champlain. It's quite close to our house. It's an hour and 15 minutes away. It's a wonderful place to sail. And he's been sailing there now for 2 years, and he's gonna leave shortly to go down to the Bahamas. And the way you get to the Bahamas is you take your mast down and you go through the Champlain Canal, which takes you south through New York State, actually along the New York State-Vermont border for a good part, and dumps you out into the Hudson River near Troy, New York, which is really close to Albany. And then from there, you can go down the Hudson. There's a place along that path there that I will say specializes in putting masts back up, because there's actually a fair number of boats, sailboats included, and power boats that go up to Lake Champlain for the summer from down south. And there's also a fair number that go to the Great Lakes. And if you're coming from the Great Lakes and you want to head south, you take the Erie Canal, which connects the Great Lakes, again, to Troy via the Erie Canal and dumps you into the Hudson River. So there's a place, a marina that's down near Saugerties, I think, a little south of Albany, that is known for being really good at putting masts back up on sailboats. And then from there, he'll sail down the coast of the United States and over to the Bahamas. So we had a great conversation. I hope you enjoy our conversation, and let's dive right into it.
Let me adjust. You're echoing in the boat right now.
Oh.
Too late. And hang on 1 second.
Yeah, headset usually helps.
Sorry, Bella.
That's all right. Hang on. Take your time.
My wife is saying, "Where's your headset?"
I don't know where it is.
I got it. Someone threw it in.
Oh, that could have been me.
Yeah, my wife hit it on me.
Yeah. That's right.
So what's your background? Because Bella is.
Yeah, so it's pronounced Bela.
Bela.
Yep.
I should know. I hear it when on your podcast.
Yeah, it's Hungarian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a very common Hungarian name that does not have an English translation, right? I mean, there's Frank in Hungarian, there's Steve in Hungarian,
right.
There's George, but Bela is Bela.
No,
and
Bela.
Yeah, I was born there, immigrated to this country in 1956. They had a revolution in 1956, and my father had the foresight to say, we're out of here. And my dad and myself and my mom walked across the border, and we ended up here in the United States. So, yeah.
Well, you were a little kid then.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. I can't remember if I remember stuff from those times, or if it's just the memories I have from my parents talking about it, right? It's that age of 3 and 4 when you don't really have a clear sort of image of what's real and what are real memories and what are things that you remember from people talking about. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. So, yeah, because that was the first time I've heard that name, and I come out of the sports world, so I've dealt with a lot of people from foreign countries with
Yeah.
all the different dialects and variations, and that's a new one for me.
Sure. Oh,
So,
great. So you guys are on the boat.
we are literally on the boat right now. We're
Yeah.
getting ready. Well, that's part of our story, I guess, is that we've we sold our house up here. We were going to rent it while we were gone, and the past year the market, we're at Sugarbush is where the house was, and the market was so hot up there that the realtor said, we could get you a lot of money for this place. And
Yeah.
it was sort of
Yeah.
like, well, if you can get that, let us know. And we got it in one day. And it was
Wow.
just one of these things that the market is never going to be as hot as it is or was a few
Yes.
months ago. And we said, sure, why not? And so we were going to be on the boat for the next 6-8 months anyway. And so we just made the transition a little sooner, and we're just trying to get this thing ready
Sure.
before we take off in a couple weeks.
Yeah. So let's just go back a little bit.
Sure.
So what is the boat? Can you tell us what it is?
Yes, it's you'll be familiar. It's a 2005 Hunter 44 DS.
Oh, great. Okay. So it's the sort of the earlier version of the boat I have. I have a 09
Yeah.
Hunter 45 deck salon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yours was the next version.
Yep. And how long have you had it?
This will be at the second summer. We bought it at the beginning of last year.
Okay. Excellent. And you say that you're on Lake Champlain, if I remember from our email exchanges. Yeah. So talk about that a little bit.
We're at Burlington Harbor Marina, and I don't know how familiar you are with the marinas here in Burlington, but on this side of the lake, there is a shortage of space, dock space, and there are 2 or 3 marinas that are in downtown Burlington. This one was built 3 years ago and is the newest. So fortunately, my wife has a friend that has a boat here, and we were able to get a slot here last summer, and yeah, we love it here. It's we're right downtown. The marina is brand new virtually, so the docks are new, the bathrooms are new. There's a restaurant, sort of a food truck restaurant that's located here during the summer. And if you want to go into Burlington, it's a 10-minute walk.
Yeah. Yeah. We chartered a lot on Lake Champlain, and mostly out of Willsboro and Plattsburgh. But we spent a couple of nights on a mooring over there in Burlington. They have that breakwater and then the mooring field behind it.
Yeah.
And stuff. And yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah, we're at the north end. Well, actually, the Coast Guard station is right behind us.
Got it. Yep.
Are familiar with that. But it's funny you mentioned Willsboro, because we go over an anchor there. And I don't know if you saw the news that this woman made that went around in her kayak to chase the boats away. And it was in all the news because she handed out, and we were there when she did it. And she was very nice, and came up to our boat and handed us a letter that basically said, we appreciate your coming over here and stuff, but can you please leave? Was the punchline. And I guess there's some friction between the people that live there in the one anchorage at the very end by the marina.
Yeah.
There. And it's a very good place, and there could be 15, 20, 30 boats there at any time. And basically some of the residents have decided that part of the lake belongs to them and we shouldn't be there. Yeah. And it's funny because it ended up going to the town council with Willsboro, and they were like, no, 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 don't chase these people. They come here and spend money.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we've anchored there many times, but it's not a rare event what you're talking about from the point of view of having anchoring and mooring wars going on between residents and boaters. There's a lot of places in Florida in particular. It's a big problem where the residents have limits on how long you can stay there, or the towns have instituted limits on how long you can stay there, et cetera.
Right.
So it's an ongoing battle, and
especially in Florida, where those residents have $10 million homes, so they have a
yes,
little bit more juice to them to complain.
that's right. That's right.
With that, but yeah, it was sort of an interesting. And as I said, she was polite about it, and we talked to her, but it was sort of like, I don't know what you're going to do, because
Yeah.
it's a public lake, and the irony was, it was about complaining about the noise.
Yes.
And we've anchored there several times. The boats are quiet as heck, and when she was talking to us, kids that had just graduated from college were having a huge party on land, and she's talking to us about the noise from the boats. And she said, well, that's just a one-time occurrence. And because I said, well, look what's going on over there at that house.
Right.
And yeah, anyway, it was a funny situation with the Willsboro. So
Yeah. So how have you enjoyed sailing on Lake Champlain? I know we used to love it.
Oh, yeah, we definitely love it. It's been a great experience, because for us, this was a big transition, going to a boat this size. And it really gave us the comfort of being able to learn in a sort of a controlled situation. That, the thing that we like about the lake is you don't really have to worry about shoaling. You don't have to worry, it's 100 feet deep, 10 feet to the
Right.
banks in some
Right.
cases. So it's a very deep lake.
Yes.
And yeah, it's been a great place. And there's some schools here. We took some lessons from the local school that's
Yeah.
on Mallett's Bay. And yeah, and there are anchorages, there are marinas. On the other hand, though, people think, well, this is just a calm lake, so how much experience can you get here, as opposed to, say, going out in the ocean? Well, we've been on the lake when the waves have been 4 and 5 feet high,
Right.
coming at you from every direction, because they're bouncing off the shore and coming back out in different directions. So
Yes.
even last weekend, it was like 2 to 3 foot waves,
Yeah.
20 knots, 25 knot winds. So,
Yeah.
but we've really enjoyed it. We've made some really good friends as well here at the marina.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting when we made the transition from, Lake Champlain was sort of the place where we got into big boats, sort of like you. It's the first place we sort of start chartering larger boats and sailing on larger boats. And, you don't have to worry about tides. You don't have to worry about
Yes.
tidal current.
Correct.
But, the wind is just as strong, as you're saying, and the waves are just as tall. And actually, they're worse because they're closer together. They're
Correct.
steep, and they're close together. So it is sort of a great place to cut your teeth, and there are a lot of places to anchor. And so you can learn about anchoring and kind of build your confidence on, dropping the hook and doing those types of things. So I think it's a wonderful place. And I'll tell you, I do miss fresh water.
Mm.
The salt water's nice, but you go sailing for a day, and if it's a little windy and salt water splashing up on the boat, that water evaporates and leaves behind salt. Right. So there's salt on the deck, there's salt on the hull, stuff corrodes really fast.
Someone just reminded me that yesterday, one of the people in a slip here, and I said, well, have you been, out in the ocean? She says, no, we don't like salt on our boat.
Yeah. And, we thought about Lake Champlain because for us, it's about an hour away, an hour and a half to Plattsburgh from where we live. And to get down to Providence, where we are on Narragansett Bay, it's 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Um,
Which
and
is a drive.
yeah, it's, so it takes, it's not a weekend trip, at least not for us. And, but the reason we have the boat there is because our son lives right there. So we have two sons, and one of our sons lives a 5-minute walk from the marina. So, and we've really liked it and exploring it, and it's been a lot of fun. But yes, I do miss the fresh water. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that is definitely nice, that you can jump off the back of the boat and swim and stuff, and yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have all the salt coming
Yeah.
back onto the boat.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this was your first big boat, it sounds like.
Yes.
So what are sort of the lessons that you learned transitioning from what did you have before? What kind of boats did you sail on?
A nothing boat.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say we had a couple of rafts in our lake near Sugarbush.
Okay.
But my wife grew up with boats
Okay.
that her father had. And my experience was I grew up in New Jersey, but down at the Jersey Shore, I used to go out all the time on boats.
Okay.
But we didn't own a boat.
Got it.
It's been some time that either one of us had a boat, and essentially before the pandemic, we were actually looking for vacation homes, and we were looking in a couple of the warm climates because what
Yes.
it's like living up in this area.
Yep.
And we were looking for vacation homes, and all of a sudden the pandemic hit, and we couldn't close on a couple of places, and it just got frustrating with a couple of situations we ran into in trying to close on a home.
Yeah.
And we just started talking, and we had been thinking about sailing, and we were watching YouTube videos, sailing, and we just said, well, what if we looked into a vacation home on the water that we can move? Because picking a vacation home, you're going to be in that area, on that street, wherever, and your neighbors and everything. Where with a boat, you can move it.
Yes.
And we kind of thought about it, and before the onslaught started with the pandemic, where people were buying boats, we got one early on and just
Oh,
said,
good.
we'll get a boat and we'll learn. And our goal was to sail it to the Caribbean, into the Bahamas,
Yeah.
which is what we're going to do this winter.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, was the boat on Lake Champlain?
No, which was another learning experience. It was in Maine, and we had been looking for a long time. One of the things that we did follow was we had our priorities as to what we wanted to do and what we wanted on the boat.
Yes.
So and ironically, we started out small, and small grew.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, we were looking at 40-some foot boats. But we made that decision as we were moving along, and we eventually found something that was in immaculate condition in Maine. And that was one of the experiences, is that then you have to get the boat from Maine to Lake Champlain. And that was quite a learning experience, because normally you put a boat on a trailer and you drive it somewhere.
Right.
And, we decided that sailing it here was just not going to work. That was going to be a long, arduous thing. And I didn't feel comfortable at that time. I didn't have the offshore experience nor the experience to handle something of this size.
Sure.
So it would have meant hiring a captain. The rigmarole to try and
Sure.
go down and come back up the Hudson. So we ended up over, by road, is putting it on a truck.
Yes.
And well, how much could that be? It's only from Maine to Vermont. And the enlightening part was, because they don't move boats from Maine to Vermont, we were going to pay dearly for that. It was, I think, less to move the boat to Florida by truck, because they have another boat coming the
Right.
other direction.
Right.
And it was just interesting going through that. And we were all set. And one of the other things on Lake Champlain that we learned is there's only a couple of places that can launch a boat this size. And one of them was Shelburne Marina. And not anticipating, well, okay, we called them. And, well, we could either do it May 4th or August 12th. What do you mean August 12th? It's like the summer's over. It's like, well, we do 10, 12 boats a day, every day of the week, Sundays, Saturdays, because the season starts at the end of April. And we're flat out putting whatever they have there, 500 boats in the water.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, oh my gosh, so it has to be May 4th. And so we had to get the company to commit to getting it here for May 4th. And everything was set, and I'm over in Maine, and we're trying to get all this done. And, you know, the boat has to be, as you know, packed in the mast and everything. And I get a call, and he goes, "We're not coming." I go, "What do you mean you're not coming? I've scheduled this with you. I said it had to be there for this launch date." He goes, "It's raining." I go, "Okay, the boat, it's a boat."
Yeah.
It's a boat. It can get wet.
Right.
Vermont doesn't allow oversized loads on their roads when it's raining or snowing.
Oh, wow.
So he said they would pull us over and we'd be fined.
Wow.
So I had to call. The marina was great because they said, this isn't the first time this has happened.
Yeah.
And he said, we'll get you in the following day or whatever. Unfortunately, the next day was beautiful, but it was just this thing we had planned so hard. And yeah, and because it's an oversized load, it had the tractor trailer and it had to have a vehicle in front and in back.
Yeah.
But it was an easy trek for them. But it was just the fact that they said Vermont is really restrictive on oversized loads because of the winter, especially.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
So
Wow.
that was.
Sounds like a real adventure. So what have been some of the other sort of unanticipated or surprises that you've encountered in sort of your adventure so far?
The acronym for BOAT.
Yes.
Which
break out another 1,000.
Yes. And I wish it was just another 1,000. I mean, we expected some of it. I think it was the elevated levels. As a matter of fact, I just came back from the sail company that's helped us a lot with 3 blocks and 3 snap shackles that it will be $300 and some dollars.
Yes.
You know, for those. So I think part just the elevated cost, because we knew we were going to have to make certain advances with the boat. It was in great shape, but one thing was the electronics.
Sure.
And they were older. It was the older Raymarine, the E90 stuff, and it worked. But my wife is a tech person, thank God. And she was able to figure out with the cards and making everything work, but they were constantly fighting with each other. And we knew if we were going to leave the lake, that we were going to have to upgrade those systems. So we had planned on investing a certain amount, not so much fixing anything, upgrading. And I'll say from my experience, my lack of experience, there's a huge difference in having a boat on the lake that you take out on the weekends and you go out for a few hours, maybe an overnight, and then you come back and you park the boat.
Yes.
When you're leaving and you're going to be living on the boat and you're going to be moving hundreds, thousands of miles, it's a whole nother level of what you have to prepare for.
Absolutely.
With the boat. And number one for us has been safety. So, we've been really diligent at looking at all the safety elements. As a matter of fact, today I was at the sail company to sew our jack lines. Now, 3 years ago, if you asked me what a jack line was, I would say, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, we're getting jack lines, and just that experience of learning what they are, how they work, and the fact is that we're not using your typical outside jack lines, is that we're doing inside jack lines. So we're going to have multiple lines. You know, for the person that doesn't sail, they have no idea probably what this is. But one of the things we learned with outside jack lines, when you fall over, you don't get lost from the boat, you just drown under it.
That's right.
And that was harped on me. I took the offshore courses down at Maryland School of Sailing, which is considered one of the better schools.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things they said, no, we don't use outside jack lines for that reason. And then we started looking into it, and we saw the fact that, you know, as strong as you think you are or the help you have on the boat, if you go over far enough and the boat is heeling that way, you're going under and you're being dragged under the water. Anyway, that's sort
Yeah.
of one of the
So
learning.
just so all of our listeners may not, when you say outside jack lines, you're talking about the typical way that a lot of people do jack lines, which is they attach it to a bow cleat at one end and they run it along the side deck of the boat and they attach it to a stern cleat or some other fastener at the other end, right? So you clip in, so you're clipped into the boat, but if you do fall overboard, there's enough spring in the line that you're going to end up in the water, like you said. And even if you're not heeling over, even at 3 or 4 knots, man, it's really hard, almost impossible to get yourself back on. So you're doing, where are your jack lines going to run now, so that when you talk about their inside?
So what we're doing is we're going to have, because you can't just run a single line down the center of the boat, we
Right.
will go from the bow to the mast,
Yeah.
from the mast to one of the interior side rails, and from the interior side rail into the cockpit. And
Yes.
then we will have double connection points so that when you release from one, you're still hooked in, and then you connect the other and then release it. But you will always be connected in the center of the boat. So if you were to fall, you don't go over the rail.
Right. Right. Very
So,
nice. Very nice.
So, you know, that's, and, you know, that's one of those things that's taken us a while. You know, it's that list, you just add that list up of all these things. We added AIS
Yeah.
to our boat. And, you know, that was a huge safety thing, and being able to, as you know, because I've listened to your podcast, of being able to see other boats and they can see
Right.
you.
Right.
But when you had an older electronic system, AIS doesn't work with that stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had to go to NEMA 2000 for the wiring. And so we just said, all right, upgrade the boat. And, you know, and that's what we did. So we upgraded the battery system, the electrical system, you know, new chart plotters, new radar, AIS, you know, and again, it's all for safety purposes, is we wanted to have stuff that we knew was going to work, it was installed correctly, because there are a lot of do-it-yourselfers, but that was not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, very nice. So it sounds like you're well prepared. So talk to us a little bit about the trip. How does one go from Lake Champlain, which is an interior lake that borders New York on one side, New York on the west, and Vermont on the east? How do you get from there down to the Bahamas?
So how you do that is, the first thing you do when we leave Burlington is we go to Shelburne, and we have to have the mast taken down. So before we go anywhere, which is next week, is they'll demast the boat. We will put it in a cradle, because to leave Lake Champlain going south to the Hudson, you have to go through a series of locks, a dozen locks. And they have bridges that we have to go under that are not bridges that raise up or move.
Yes.
And the clearance is approximately, depending on who you talk to and ask on what day, you know, 15, 17, 20 feet.
Yeah.
And obviously with a mast that's 60 some feet high, that doesn't work. So we have that, we'll take that down. It's about a 1 to 2 day sail down to where the locks are, 2 days through the locks. And then once we get through, we've made a reservation at a marina after the locks that will put the mast back up.
Yep.
And the marina does like 400 sailboats a year that are
Yes.
going through the locks, either north or south.
Yeah.
And
This,
then we head down the Hudson River to New York City.
got it. Yeah. This is a well. A lot of people don't know this, but it's a well-traveled route for sailboats. So there's a pretty good flotilla of boats coming either from the Great Lakes, which come through the Erie Canal, which basically cuts across New York State east and west, or the Champlain Canal, which goes north-south up to Lake Champlain and the Mohawk and the Hudson River. And then, yeah, so there's a lot of people who know how to take mast up, put them back up and install them or lower them. Yeah, very nice.
Right. And and then I've been charting everything from New York City all the way down to Florida. Actually, we will be stopping in Georgia for a while. But it's been a lot of effort to figure
Sure.
out where we're going to go, what marinas, and going offshore, because that's
Yeah.
another decision. Do you stay on the ICW or do you go offshore? And
Yeah.
but we've been spending a lot of time, and I actually went, as I said before, down to the Maryland School of Sailing, which is considered one of the better schools, and was there for a week taking their offshore course to get
Yeah.
used to currents and tides.
Sure.
And the first time they let me handle the boat uh, through under a bridge with 3+ knot current,
Yes.
and it wasn't, if you take your time and stuff and you don't panic, it's not bad. But they
Right.
took us through at the worst possible time so that we could get that experience
Yeah.
down there. But the school down there was phenomenal, and
Yeah.
learned a lot, and especially docking, because of all the things that comes with a sailboat, with any boat, is going in and out of the marina. I found that is the paranoid
Yep.
experience of most boaters.
That's right.
And we've watched, as we say here in the marina, you're either the spectator or you're the show.
That's right.
And so that was a whole nother thing that really helped.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you go down the coast of the United States, what are your plans for going down through from New York City to like Cape May? Cape May is sort of the southern part of New Jersey. Are you going to go on the outside? Are you going to make a stop? So you're going to do that overnight? What are your plans on that one? I'm always curious about that because that's kind of a challenge sometimes.
Well, the decision that we've made is we are going to go to Sandy Hook, which is that northern
Yep.
spot of Jersey. We will anchor there.
Yeah.
We're going to wait for a good weather window, but we cannot go inside in Jersey because the shoaling there and the depth, we have a shoal draft, so we're a little over 5 feet, but it's just not feasible on the inside. So we've made the decision that we're going to sail from Sandy Hook to Atlantic City or Cape May in one swoop,
Got it.
and then stop there before we head up the Delaware to the C&D Canal.
Okay. Right. So you can get from Sandy Hook to Atlantic City, I think, in a day sail.
Yes.
So if you can pull into Atlantic City is the sort of one place you can stop along the New Jersey coast for a big tall sailboat.
Yes.
And then Cape May's very nice. A lot of nice marinas in there. There's a nice anchorage when you pull into Cape May right in front of the Coast Guard station. I learned an interesting lesson there. Once I was helping a friend bring a boat up, and we anchored. We here again. I didn't have a lot of experience in saltwater. I had a lot of experience on Lake Champlain, and so we found the Coast Guard station. We cruised around. We said, "Oh, great! The water's 10 feet deep. We'll drop anchor." So we let out. I think it was 5 times the scope. On the chain. And au contraire, there's about 6 feet of tide there, and it was low tide.
Oh.
So it went from 10 feet to 16 feet because in the morning we woke up and I said, I think we've moved.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Is figuring that. And on that note, we got new chain and a new anchor.
Yeah.
Because, what we have, I realized that one, the chain was too short, and two is it's like the original anchor from this boat, which is nice and it works, but we went with the latest and the greatest of anchors that are out there right
Yes.
now. We went with a Vulcan
Yeah.
anchor, which is supposed to be one of the better for holding, and certainly if the boat changes positions and stuff, it grabs really well. And we had it out, last weekend. It was 25 knots where we were anchored, and I did not have the scope out for that very purpose, as I wanted to see the holding
Yes.
power. We didn't move an inch.
That's great.
But yeah, you're right. Is you got to remember that the depth changes with the
Right.
with the tides.
Yeah. I'll never make that mistake again. So then you're going to go up to Delaware Bay.
Correct.
The challenge with the Delaware Bay is there's not a lot of places to stop.
No, there's possibly one anchorage that we've identified, Cohasset or something. I forget the name of it. But our goal would be, again, a good weather window. Make sure that the current is going in your direction on the Delaware. And if you do, and you get a good weather window, you can fly right up into the C&D Canal.
Yep.
So, we know where we can stop if we had to, but our goal is to do the whole thing. And you can, because it's, I think, 60 nautical miles, give or take.
Yeah. It's a long day. You start early in the
yeah,
morning.
Yeah.
And if you get the current push, like you said, and the wind push, you're doing fine. And then there's a beautiful anchorage in Chesapeake City.
Yes.
On the canal there. Very nice. It's not big, but very nice, super well protected anchorage. There's a nice restaurant there. You can walk into town, and there's some other restaurants and stuff. So that's quite nice.
And that's our goal.
Yeah.
Is
Perfect.
to get there. So.
And then you're going to spend any time in the Chesapeake, because the Chesapeake is wonderful.
Well, I sailed there for a week with the sailing school. So I may go. Their marina where they work out of is called Rock Hall.
Rock Hall. Yep.
And so we may go there, but we plan to go over to Annapolis, and based on our timing, we may be there for the boat show. But on the other hand, I've been told, don't go to the boat show, get out of there before that ends and everybody else is heading south. So I think we'll get there early, but Annapolis, St. Mary's is another place. And fortunately, in our sailing down there with the school, I went to all those places, and I learned where unlike Lake Champlain, the Chesapeake is not deep. And, and I learned very quickly, charting and stuff there, that some of the shoaling goes out a half a mile, where it's 3 feet deep. So the good thing is I learned where a lot of those places are, but it was a good experience. And and the Chesapeake, I had a great time sailing there. It was a lot of fun, especially when you have a trained captain of 30 years that knows all the places to go and the ins and outs.
Sure. Yeah, it's one of the interesting things. Again, where I am in Providence on Narragansett Bay, there's a lot of shallow areas. It's sort of like the Chesapeake from that respect. Good thing it's mostly mud, but you got to pay attention, right? And unlike Lake Champlain, and I did a lot of sailing on Lake George, they mark all the shallow spots, because often with danger buoys or whatever on Lake Champlain, I remember those, because lots of times there wasn't charts for Lake Champlain, right? There was no chart. So basically they marked everything, and you would look for danger buoys, and they would mark all the shallow spots. Well, they don't mark shallow spots on the Chesapeake Bay. They don't mark shallow spots on Narragansett, because they assume you have a chart, and because they've had charts for 100 years. So you really got to pay attention to where you are and where you're going, and don't expect that every shallow spot is going to be marked, because they're not.
Yeah, correct. And that was sort of interesting in the class I took, because we weren't allowed to use electronics.
Yeah.
So we were sitting there in the boat as we're moving along using the charts. Now, obviously, the captain knows exactly every square inch of the Chesapeake going down into the ocean. But yeah, we were constantly navigating that type of stuff. And we actually, in one of our anchorages, he finally brought out the phone because it was doing like this snake-like routine with 2 feet on either side of clearance of going through it, and it was kind of funny doing that. But he finally said, "No, I have to use this now because this is such a tricky anchorage to get into." And he directed us, and we managed to get into this very awkward anchorage. And he says he loves to come there like with his wife because it is just the perfect spot. There's nobody else here. It's dead quiet. And we weren't there 15 minutes when 5 jet skis come screaming into this quiet anchorage that nobody ever goes to.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh my gosh," he said, "Boy, did I pull a fast one here." But yeah.
So are you planning to go down the ICW mostly, or going to go outside as well?
We're making some of those decisions now. We're going to go inside when we get down to Norfolk. And actually, I have a question for you about the ICW that we're sorting out now. But we're planning to take the ICW down to Morehead City, if you're familiar, that being one of the stops. And then we're contemplating, because we need to stop in Wilmington, North Carolina. We have to take a break and fly back up here for a kid's wedding.
Sure.
So we plan to get to Wilmington, leave the boat for a week there. And we're contemplating going outside at Morehead City because it's a one-day sail, basically. And if the weather's great, rather than slogging along, because from Morehead City, you start to get into more shoaling and stuff south of there. And so we're kind of figuring that out. But I did want to ask you, going down there, have you made the choice of going through the Dismal Swamp or through the canal that goes down to skip the Dismal Swamp? Because you either hear the Dismal Swamp is wonderful, or we did it once, never again, because of the trees and the stumps that you hit or possibly hit.
The times that I've done it, we've always done the canal, not the swamp.
Oh, you did.
But for no particular reason, right? So it wasn't. I don't want to say it was like a well thought out, conscious decision. It was this is how we're going.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And now, when you go, I'm just curious. When you go outside, are you thinking of doing any overnight passages?
Probably not initially. Although we are contemplating the possibility from the New York down to Atlantic City, Cape May, because some people have said, if you have a great weather window for 2 or 3 days, don't stop in Atlantic City. Just keep on going.
Yeah.
And the question that we have to answer, that we have to be comfortable with is, if you want to make it one day, you have to start very early. And if you run into any whatever current situations, you could be getting into Atlantic City or Cape May at night, as opposed to if you leave early morning, midday from North Jersey and say we're going to do an overnight, you're guaranteed to be getting into Cape May during the day.
Yes.
So that's some of the questions, but I may have some help going with us on that part of the lake, because I grew up in Jersey, and I grew up, we had a house down the shore. So I know people that sail and have boats, and I do know the other inlets there because I used to go in and out of those on boats when I was a kid. So I know Manasquan and Barnegat and those places, but the preference is not to have to go in there because it's a challenge. Currents.
So whenever I've done those types of passages where you don't want to get in at night, and if you slow down by a knot, you're going to get in at night. I always left in the daylight planned to sail overnight, so I had a good, 6 or 8 hour window of time to get into where I'm trying to get to, and I know I'll be coming in during daylight. So I highly recommend. I would highly recommend that path as opposed to, leaving Sandy Hook at 4 a.m. and then being tense all day because you might not make it to Cape May. You don't want to get in at dark, right?
Exactly. So the question, and some people say do it this way, and others say, oh, if you leave early enough, you're not going to have any problem getting to Atlantic City. And others have said, but if you have a great window,
keep
why
going.
do you want to stop? Not to pick on AC, but why would you want to stop at Atlantic City?
Right.
Keep on going and go to Cape May, and you've just saved yourself a day, so to speak.
I've had in a pass, an overnight passage, whether I'm coming north or whether I'm going south. I've always done it Cape May to Sandy Hook or Sandy Hook to Cape May nonstop, and you're going to do an overnight. Now the other thing, I would also recommend, if you're going to do an overnight passage, having a third crew person, because I've done it both with 3 people and I've done them with 2 people, and meaning a total of 2 or a total of 3. And I find that with just 2 people, I don't get enough sleep. Just for my body, I need a certain amount of sleep, and when we had 3 people on board, we would do 3 hours on, 6 hours off. And I could get in 6 hours, I could get 4 hours of sleep, and that was good enough that I could do my next watch. But for me, doing, whether we did with just 2 people, whether you do 3 hours on and 3 off, or 4 off, it just wasn't enough sleep, and I was whacked out. And the other thing that I always tried to do on passages when I've made them is, if I have an opportunity to sleep when I'm not on watch, I will try to catch a nap or a sleep, because you never know, like if something starts happening and you're not on watch, but they need your help, you got to get up. Right. So your sleep time is never guaranteed. Right. So, because the crew used to make fun of me. He said, "Oh, Bailey, you're always sleeping." I go, well, if I have an opportunity to sleep, I'm going to sleep.
You're going to take
because I don't know what's coming later in the day or tonight, and I might have to be up. Yeah. All of us may have to be up for the whole evening because we're in the middle of a storm, or who knows what's going on, right? So, yeah.
Well, the one advantage I can say I have, and maybe it was just I was born to do this, I don't need much sleep. My wife marvels at the fact that you can go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning and you're up at 4:35. I said, well, I need 4 or 5 hours. I'm fine.
Yeah,
and
I wish I was that way.
If I had to stay up, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. Now, 2 or 3 days of no sleep, yeah, probably. But in my younger days, I've made the drive. Well, I drove from LA to New York in 3 days.
Oh my gosh. I've been on flights that have taken longer than that.
Yeah, I know. That's the way it is today. But yeah, no, I like the fact that what you're saying, because if you have great weather, the overnight where you don't have to worry about getting in late makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
And skipping AC, because people say, why do you want to stop in AC?
And I'll tell you that nighttime sailing is magical. At least for me, it is. It's just, there's just something about being out on the water, offshore. It's dark. You can see the stars. If there's a moon, that's great. It's just, there's something magical for me about those overnight passages. They're really great.
Yeah, and that's I'm looking forward to doing that. And as I said, I have friends that I've talked to that have said, "Oh yeah, we'll go. We have a lot of people saying, "Can we go?"
Sure, that's great.
Most want to join us when we get into the Bahamas.
Yeah, well, they're that's part of the IQ test. Let's see which one they pick, the Jersey coast or the Bahamas.
Yeah, that's a tough choice, but
yeah. The other place that I can recommend stopping would be Charleston. There's a great marina there, and it's called the City Marina, if I remember correctly. and they have a free shuttle downtown. It's just a nice city to sort of hang around in. There's like an old town where you can walk around. They have all these restaurants and everything. It's done really well. So Charleston's a nice stop.
Yeah.
Relatively easy to get in and out of, right? So it's a shipping port. So it's well marked, it's well dredged. You don't have to worry. Some of the other inlets and outlets, particularly if you grew up in New Jersey, they can be tricky.
Yeah.
So, and particularly with a sailboat, you have a 300 horsepower outboard, you can go, but
Right.
when you're in a sailboat, some of those can be tricky, particularly when the wind and the current are in opposite directions. So some of those inlets and outlets are a challenge along the ICW. So you have to pick your way. You have to pick where you're going in and out.
Yeah.
And here again, when we did it, we always went into ports where there was a well-marked channel. You knew it was deep,
yeah.
and it was good.
Well, where is it? It's one of the things, sorry to lean over here out, is one of the things I've found invaluable is the cruising guide from Bob 423.
Yeah.
That he's put out. The information in there is just phenomenal, of everything from marinas to anchorages, to actually, my wife's working on this now, is he's got tracks that you follow, that where there are difficult areas, you take his track, put it in your system, and you're good. And, you don't have to worry. There are those troublesome spots. Like you said, not everything is marked perfectly.
Right.
But I will say that taking the courses that I've taken, took the navigation courses and stuff through Maryland, which was like being back in college, is learning how to read everything, and also how to check on everything through the Coast Guard stuff. I've asked other people. Most people don't even know what the light list is.
That's right.
And I've worked on that, and looking at that, because it updates everything weekly. I find it very frustrating looking things up on it, because it makes no sense as to how it's organized. But I think we've really spent the time, as I said, focusing on the safety issues, and we've said we're in no rush. And if we have to stay somewhere because of weather, then we'll stay somewhere. But we're not delivering a boat, because I hear the two sides of people that deliver boats that are on a timeline and they got to get somewhere and they'll take the risks. And I'm on the other side where, we'll hang out and we'll check out the town, or we'll just stay here, and, and when the weather's good again, we'll leave.
Well, I heard some quote, and I'm not hitting it the right way, but I'm paraphrasing it, something like, for sailors who are not on a schedule, always sail in good weather.
Yeah.
Again, it's an IQ test, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to go out when the weather's crappy or the wind's blowing in the wrong direction, or do you wait another day or two? So
that's one of the first lessons I learned, which is, if you have a schedule, that's when you get in trouble.
Right.
That don't think you're going to map something out for the next month. And it's not like the old triptychs things you used to get with the car, and it used to map your thing out on the roads, and you just get in the car and drive, and
right.
No problem. You get here, and here every day, and it works like magic. Don't do that in a boat. Have 2 or 3 days planned, but that's about it as far as mapping. We're mapping our whole route, but where we're going to be on what day, we're flexible on that. But we have a good idea that if the weather's good and stuff, we know how long each leg will take us.
Yeah, there's your route and your schedule, and they're two different things.
Correct. Correct. So.
Yeah, exactly. So once you get down to the Bahamas, how long are you going to stay down there? What's sort of your plan?
We're going to stay the entire winter until insurance forces us back home,
okay,
so to speak. And I don't want to go into the 2-hour discussion of insurance, but there's a good example of between owning a car and owning a boat, of talking about the experience. when you add a car, you call your insurance adjuster, you
Right.
say, I bought a
Add a
car,
car.
here
Right.
it is, add it on, and it's on there the same day. It doesn't work like that with a boat.
That's right.
But knock on wood, I have to say, we've been lucky. We bought the boat. We don't have a loan on the boat. And we have enough experience where we've been able to get the insurance that we need. The initial one wasn't too bad that we got through our homeowner's policy for Lake Champlain, because it's got to be out of the water on this date, and you can put it back in on this date because you can't leave it in the water on Lake Champlain.
Right. Right.
But as soon as we said ocean, our homeowner's policy said, we don't know that word.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we had to go, and I checked a whole bunch of places. I got names of brokers and everything. And we ended up, knock on wood, getting a good policy that will allow us to go to the Bahamas, go 100 miles offshore, but we're not planning to do that. But we have to, between June 1st and November 1st, we have to be north of Florida.
Yep.
So that's the only requirement. And we know some people where the requirements are north of, Charleston, or
That's right.
even further north.
Or Moorhead City, right? Or yes.
Correct.
Right.
So, and so we're planning to keep it in Georgia when we return. My wife's father lives in Georgia. So that's one of the reasons we've been looking at Georgia. And when you mentioned Charleston, the Savannah, Brunswick area, there are tons of marinas, and we've talked to several about keeping our boat there when we come back.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say, having paid marina prices on Lake Champlain and New England, where we are now on Narragansett Bay, once you sort of get to the Chesapeake and south, the marina prices go way down.
Oh, you don't have to tell me about that, because we're in downtown Burlington.
Yeah.
And it was no inexpensive fee for the summer here.
Right.
As a matter of fact, it's like a mortgage.
Yeah. Exactly.
To be where we are. Yes, I've noticed that it goes down in some cases to $1 a foot.
Yeah.
For the boat.
Yeah.
And that was one of the other things. It's interesting that you learn along the way when we were looking is I got one fly here buzzing around me, is that when you're buying a boat, be aware of the water line versus the bow line.
That's right.
That you don't want a boat that extends 6 feet in either direction, bow or stern, because you're going to pay for that as extra 10 feet.
That's right.
And they serve no purpose on the internal side of the boat.
Right. The living space. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have a Hunter. It's a cruising boat. That's what it is. We've got, downstairs, yours is probably almost identical to ours, but we have, huge cabins.
Yep.
With the big windows. So there's a lot of light. And we decided we went with the 2 suites at either end.
Mm-hmm.
So our kids are all grown. So we don't plan on having a lot of kids and stuff sleeping everywhere. So if we have a couple on the boat, they have their side of the boat. They have a full bath, shower, separate shower, and the same at the stern of the boat. So we've been really happy with the Hunter, even though there are all those bad reviews out there that you see something from time to time. Don't buy a Hunter, but I don't know why you wouldn't, because we've had a great experience with it.
Yeah, as have we. I've been very happy with our purchase, and I think sounds like we sort of did the same thing. We sort of put together a list of requirements that we wanted on the boat, and I'm not sailing across oceans. We're cruising around the bay. Maybe we'll go up and down the East Coast. So it's coastal cruising. That's what we're doing. And there's certain things I wanted in the boat that were a requirement. And then all of a sudden your list gets really short. Once you sort of think through those things, it's like, boom, you're right. Okay, it's going to be one of these 3 models or 3 different manufacturers in the model. And when you have a sort of a size range. So yeah, we're very pleased with ours. I haven't had any sort of surprises. I've been very pleased with the performance and its reliability and its sort of, how it's manufactured and built. I've been very, very pleased.
Yeah, and same with us, and the
Yeah.
same thing with requirements. And not to embarrass my wife, but one of her requirements early on was 2 bathrooms.
Hmm.
We will have 2 bathrooms because if one breaks,
That's right.
there's no bucket or anything like that. So we have 2 full baths,
Yeah.
and it's worked out great because we don't have to share one of those small bathrooms or stand and wait for some
Right.
to use one.
Yep.
And we have electric heads,
Yep.
which is
Ours
was
are. Yep.
which was also a feature that we wanted. That, and the other is we have furling mast
In,
and head sail, so
yep.
that you can operate the boat from the cockpit. You don't have to go out there and climb all over the place.
Right.
That if you do things right, you can run it from the cockpit. You can do it single-handed, basically. And I've heard where you've taken yours out by yourself.
I have. Yep. Actually, I just recorded an episode for the podcast about. It's going to be a 3-part series about single handing. Right. I'm going to talk about docking.
Yeah.
I have an episode on that. Then I have another episode I'll do on anchoring and mooring. Dropping an anchor solo or picking up a mooring solo. And then also about sail management, sort of, and all of these things have taken me about 3 years to sort of figure out, right? Because each boat is different. And, for me, bringing in my main sail, I run lines a certain place around certain winches, and I can do it
Right.
myself.
Right.
Right.
Now, do you have a remote control for your anchor?
I do not.
Oh, okay. Because that's my wife's been mentioning that, seeing other people with the remote control, and one of our neighbors has the remote control for
Yeah.
the anchor. But so I was just curious if single-handed anchoring, someone's got to go up there.
You got to go up there. Right. And, the other thing is, I never try to go out in a situation or get myself into a situation that I'm going to regret. Right. And that sort of goes back to sort of safety and thinking about, okay, if this doesn't work, what could happen? And so if it's super windy out, I'm not going to anchor, or I'm not going to pull up anchor. If it's super windy, I'm going to wait because by the time, once the anchor's off the bottom, the boat's moving. But it's still in the water. So you got to be careful of what you do. Right. So there's a lot of things you got to think through there.
So I speaking of the boat, because I had this question to you.
Yes.
And I've been struggling with this, is the one thing we're dealing with on these port cabin, the fixed windows in the main part of the cabin. We have these little drips.
Yes.
That are coming in, and my mechanic has said, well, we can take care of it. I said, not until I talk to you, because you did that. And taking these windows apart, because I can't find anything on these windows, and I'm sure you have the same exact windows that I do, with the screws on the inside and the fixed aluminum on the outside. How did you take yours apart?
Okay. So the windows I did were my big wraparound windows on the deck salon part of the boat. Right. And those don't have any frames on my boat.
They don't.
No, they're just, so there's this thing they call the eyebrow that sort of goes around. You can remove the eyebrow, has the handrail on it, grab rail on it on my boat. And initially I thought maybe the grab rails bolted all the way through, the deck, the roof of the deck, but it's not. It's just the handrail's just attached to the eyebrow, and the eyebrow's attached with, I don't know, 6 or 8 screws, and that comes right off. And then the windows, there's the 2 windows on each side.
Right.
And then there's a corner piece. and then there's a front window on
Yeah.
the port and the front window, right? And they have no frame on the outside, so
Ugh.
there's no frame to those at all. And on the inside, they have a plastic frame around them, but that's just a trim ring. That doesn't do anything.
Yes.
So mine had come unglued because they're basically just glued in. That's what holds
Right.
them in. They're just
Right.
glued in. So mine had come unglued in some spots. I was able to pry them off. One of the tricks I used was because where the sealant they use or the glue they use is really strong, but I
Right.
was able to thread a guitar string up
Oh,
through there, and I had one
right.
person on the outside and the other person on the inside, and with the
Pulling.
guitar string,
Yeah.
I could work my way around and cut all of the sealant that was still solid.
Yeah.
Then I could pull the window off,
Right.
and then with a putty knife, scrape all of that old stuff
Right.
off, scrape off the stuff that's on the window frame or the part of the cabin,
Right.
right? And then I bought that Dow. I forget what the number was, but I told you that
Yeah. 765 or something.
765 or 795 or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
But it's made for. It was originally developed for gluing windows in on skyscrapers. So that's what that material was developed for, and that's what the manufacturer uses.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
see, I have completely different. I have an aluminum, I say aluminum frame on the inside, an aluminum frame on the outside, and the window sits in that frame. So the
Oh,
window, the actual glass does not get adhered to the boat because it sits in this frame.
yes,
And
yes.
where it's leaking is that rubber, whatever it is, in between the frame that it's getting in there.
Oh,
See, and I was like so excited when you said you did your windows. I'm going, wait, you got a Hunter 45. It's got to be the same windows, but no, you have the you have the tip. What's the, I call it the typical type window that adheres right to the side of the boat.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
All right.
I do have a few smaller non-opening. I think I have two of them, port windows, I'll call them,
Right.
you know, a foot long and
Yeah.
6 inches tall. And they have aluminum frames around them, and they look like they're screwed through with some stainless steel screws or something.
Right. See, that's sort of what I have
Yeah.
in the main cabin. You know, I have the 2, 4, 6, 7. You know, I have 2 on either side, and then 2 angled, and then 1 in the front.
Yeah.
Now the one in the front opens, but it's not bad, but it's progressively annoying that, you know, we need to do something because it's been leaking a little bit more.
I hate leaks on a boat. They drive me nuts.
Well, that's what you said. You like to empty the bilge and keep it clean, and
Yeah,
it's
I like a dry bilge.
but yeah, when you run the air conditioner and I had the mechanic here today adjusting the stuffing box so it drips more.
Yes.
And it's like drips more. I get it right in the bilge.
Right. Yeah, the air conditioners condensate draining into the bilge bugs me.
Yeah,
You know.
it does, but
Yeah.
uh,
Such is life.
so you know, I think just the whole thing. I really am thankful to be able to speak with you. I've enjoyed, you know, your podcast and stuff, and it's been really helpful because it's sort of your podcast is this folksy, down to earth, basic thing. You know,
Well, thank you.
you're not driving, you're not selling products, you're not driving something home. I will say you're missing the bikinis. Of course, you can't see them in the podcast, which is on all the videos
Right.
that you get. But no, learning a lot, and you know, and I have to say, this has been an adventure for my wife and I.
Sure.
And probably a lot more than we had anticipated. But I think hopefully once we leave and actually get into the meat of the trip, it'll change our perspective a bit. But this summer has been just this race to get everything done. And as you know, finding people that actually can do the work on boats
Yeah, it's not easy.
and getting the right answers, like the
Yeah.
windows, is really tough. And we're lucky we found a couple of people that have been really good to us and helping us. But it is amazing. It's not like taking your car to the auto dealer where they know everything and they just fix it and you're back in 2 hours. This
Yeah.
is oh, I've never seen that before. And God only knows, trying to find things with wiring on a boat
Yeah.
is just the spaghetti wiring, that you can't, where does this wire go and what does it do?
Yeah. 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 Well, yeah. Thank you very much for reaching out to me and, saying those kind words about the podcast. I certainly appreciate it. That's what makes doing this podcast fun and exciting. I get to meet interesting people like yourself, and that's always a great plus.
Well, what caught my attention when I was, there's a wealth of information, as you know, on the internet and through YouTube and the
Yeah.
podcast, is that everything is down south for
Yes.
sailing. There isn't a lot of sailing information coming from where we are or from Canada, so to speak.
Right.
And
That's
it was
right.
just interesting. And it's like, oh wait, and he works at a ski area too. Because I teach at Sugarbush
Yeah.
in the winter.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like, oh, that's wow. And he's not far from here. So that's why I started listening, because it's the same experience we've had with being up here in the frozen north during
Yeah.
the winter, and the short sailing season that we have from May to September, basically.
Yeah.
Here. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I've enjoyed your discussions and with your partner who is in Germany, and I don't quite know how that came about, but
Well, we both used to work at the same university, so we were both professors at
oh
the
wait,
same
who was at
school.
Clarkson?
Both of us were at Clarkson. Yeah.
That's where my wife went to school.
Oh, wow. Look at that, huh? Small world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
that was the other thing too. Yeah,
yeah,
so you both taught at Clarkson?
we both taught at Clarkson. He's a lifelong academic. I was in higher ed for 10 years. The last 10
Oh,
years of my career, I was teaching in business school. Before that, I was in business. And then a few years before I retired, he moved to Germany and he's teaching in Germany now.
right.
And he and I really hit it off when we were together in Clarkson. And
Oh,
so we
okay.
said, we have to figure out a way to keep doing stuff together, because we used to
Oh,
like doing that. So I had this
yeah, because
crazy idea of starting a
yeah,
podcast.
and he doesn't sail.
It doesn't sail. So actually we started our first podcast about entrepreneurship, which
Mm.
is a subject we both taught. So we have another podcast called The Unconventional Path, which has been around about 4 years, and it's all about entrepreneurship, mainly small businesses. We tend to interview small business owners, and that's got
Mhm.
like 165 episodes or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And
Cool.
then after we got the sailboat, I had the bright idea of, let's start one. I'm going to start one about sailing.
Hmm.
And sailing specifically the East Coast, because like you said, there really isn't any. Everything's in the, South Pacific, or,
Right.
the glamorous places.
Exactly.
And then Mike said, "Hey, I'll do that with you too." I said, "Great, that'd be fabulous." So
Well, it works out well because he asks the exact questions
yeah,
that a novice would ask.
yeah,
It was funny today. I was at the sail place that has worked on our sails, and he was setting me up with blocks. We have a Jenniker,
mm,
but we haven't used it yet. So he walked me through the whole thing of what blocks you need and the whole bit. And he was talking to one of the sail people that's cutting, and I said, Bill, do you realize you just spoke for like 2 minutes, and most people would not have a clue as to what you were talking about at all when you're
yeah,
talking of the luff thing and this thing and the tape and this and the
yeah,
clutch and the I said it's like you're in a foreign language course.
yeah,
And that's been one of the things with the boat that I will say frustrates me, is that everything on the boat has a different name
yeah,
from the real world. And
yeah,
it's just been an experience, because when you talk to somebody knowledgeable, I'm a lot better now, but talking to somebody knowledgeable and they start throwing around all these words, it's like, well, you might as well be speaking French to me.
right,
you know,
Right. It is a new
because
language, right? It is a new language
yeah,
for sure.
it is. So,
Yeah.
you know, trying to learn that and prepare and everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, we've really had a good time with the boat. We've had our moments, you know, with frustration. I'll say my wife does not like docking
Mm.
uh, uh, at all, and she's shaking her head as she sits here. That she doesn't like my techniques I've come back with from Maryland.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, Mike, I have figured out a way to dock our boat solo,
Mm,
and it works great. So, and I still utilize Elaine, my wife, uh,
right.
but I don't have to. So it works very well. And uh, I have found, you know, again, it takes I take advantage of the design of the boat, and I take
Right.
advantage of the slip I'm in, and I
Yeah.
take advantage of both of those things. And fundamentally, the key discovery for me, or the key insight was, you know, I tried docking sticks, I tried ways of lassoing the cleat as I'm passing by it, and all that kind of stuff, and it didn't work worth crap. Uh, and down in Maryland, of course, they don't have a lot of tide, so the docks don't float, right?
Correct.
So that's a whole different ball game, right? Where we are, that we have
Right.
floating docks.
Right.
And the key discovery for me was I have two, they're probably a foot and a half, maybe 2 foot in diameter uh, fenders, but they're
Right.
balls. They're the shape of a ball,
Oh, you have the balls. Yeah.
right? I have two of those that I
Hmm.
put on the stern of my boat.
Yeah.
So they're like big bumpers between the stern of my boat and the dock.
Hmm.
And so I come in stern too, because I can step right off my boat, just like you can, right to the
Right.
dock, right?
Yeah.
So I come in stern too. I, I, I cuddle up to the dock with my stern, and I leave my boat in reverse idle, and
Right.
it just holds the boat right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I could go have a cup of coffee and the boat's not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
As long as I don't have a stiff side breeze from my port side, because then that'll blow me into the boat next to me. But any
Right.
other wind, my boat just stays there.
Yeah.
And so that I can just walk off the boat nice and gingerly, grab my stern line, tie it up, walk up to the bow. And what I do with my bow line is I flake it over my lifelines,
Right. I know. Yes.
right?
That's,
That
yep.
technique. So I can grab it mid boat. I can
Right.
grab my bow line and then just grab it from the middle of the boat and walk forward with it and clean it off, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Yeah.
those
Well,
big round fenders were key for me.
yeah, we noticed, we've had that discussion about the big round fenders and get, you know, but then you got to store them somewhere.
You know
And,
what? I just leave them hanging on the back of my boat.
oh, okay.
I shorten them up
Yeah.
so they sit on, they're not, they're sitting
They're
on
not,
the step there, right? So they're
they're
not
not in the way.
not in the way. And I have them onto the side
Yeah.
because I have them as far to the sides as possible, because that gives me a bigger purchase and it keeps my boat squarer to the dock.
Yeah. See,
So,
where we are, we're at the widest part of the lake,
yes.
and the Burlington marinas are not well protected. When you get a westerly northwest wind,
Yeah.
it can howl through here, and we do have the break front out there, but you know, I like you coming in stern first because you step right off the boat. But
Right.
in order to do that where we are, you do have to stop and turn the boat around to be able to do that. And,
Mhm.
you know, we can have 15, 20 knot winds blowing through here.
Sure.
And I just made the decision, once it gets to 15, I come in bow first, because then I can just saddle right up. But
Right.
anything more than that, coming in backwards is, once you get the boat moving, but the problem is when you stop it and start making these turns and that wind is blowing.
Yep.
You know, you have bow thrusters, I take it,
I do. I have a bow thruster. Yeah.
and that was an early learning experience. Well, I got bow thrusters. I can always turn the bow. No, you can't.
No, you can't.
And I had that experience where the wind, I'm pushing on the bow thrusters. Wait, what's going on? The wind's still taking
That's
me the
right.
wrong way.
That's right.
And so, you know, but I'd say that I'm fairly confident. I haven't hit and destroyed anything, but you know, I've seen some of the best sailors here that get caught in the process of trying to turn a boat around in the marina, and the wind's going, and the next thing you know, once you start spinning out of control, it's tough.
It's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah. So yeah, docking is interesting.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, this has been great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh no,
I
I thank you very much for entertaining, having me on. Not being,
Sure.
I don't have 30 years experience, but
All right.
I'm getting started. But I'll leave you with this, and if this ends up on the final cut, is just that, um, uh, uh, you know, my wife and I have both retired. I'm finally slowing my business down. My wife retired this year from education technology, and people, I hear this all the time. Well, people are, it's too old. You're too, how old can you be to take on something like this? And for us, I say it's been enlightening that, we could be sitting on the porch drinking iced tea, and maybe that's what a lot of people want to do. But I think we wanted more, and we wanted to keep doing things. And there's no reason, that I'll be 70 next year, is that there's no reason you can't do this. And, as long as you're safe and you're not crossing oceans, at least for us, we don't have any plans to do that. Like you said, we're coastal cruising.
Right.
And, we see a lot of older couples that are out there, most of them on their trawlers now.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't see any reason why you can't do this later in life and enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Well said. And I don't let the schedule push me, and I'm cautious, and I don't let myself get into trouble, or I try not to let myself get into trouble.
You mean with sailing or your wife?
Well, I try on both. I'm much more successful on the sailing part.
Exactly. Well, listen, thank you so much for allowing me this
Sure.
thing, even though you couldn't help me with my windows.
Yeah, that was a disappointment. I thought
I
we'd
was
chat about that.
I even told the mechanic today. I said, no, let's not talk about windows till I talk to Baylor.
Yeah. Different type of windows. Oh well.
Well, that's the thing with boats. No two are alike. Even the same boat from the same manufacturer, I think it depends on what they have available at the time to throw in terms of, we have these pumps, or we have,
That's right.
we have this autopilot, so let's throw it in, because it's amazing that it's, again, not like cars where they crank them out. They're all different. And, I have neighbors that laugh, that they can't find the switch to turn something on. It's supposed to be here, but it's not.
Right.
So,
right. It's amazing. Well, I will let you know when this comes out.
Yes, you have my email.
Probably be out in a couple weeks is my guess.
Sure.
And I'll let you know. And what I'd love to do is maybe, when you have a few days and you're sitting someplace, in October or whatever. Let's connect and let's do a quick update as to how it went.
As a matter of fact, because I was going to say is that all our friends and relatives and everybody said, well, you're going to have something on YouTube, right? You're going to be able to, we're going to follow you and stuff. So we're actually, my wife's crossing her fingers right now, but we're going to actually do that and videotape some of the stuff. And I'll definitely keep you posted. Now, maybe in October, I say, well, we ended up putting it back on the card, and we quit when we got to New Jersey.
Right, the boat's for sale.
The boat's for sale, but
stuck on a sandbar in the Dismal Swamp, and it's for sale.
Yeah, but yes, I'll definitely do that. And again, thanks for entertaining me for your podcast.
Yeah, so, you're very welcome.
How many can I?
Sure.
Can I ask how many people do you have now? Do you know what your numbers are?
It bounces around. Yes, it bounces around a little bit by episode, but there's approximately between 400 to 500 people who listen to each episode within 30 days.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So, the bulk of that happens in the first week an episode is released, and then the rest is in dribs and drabs. But it's about 400 to 500 people. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, that's great, because you're not advertising or anything.
No.
You're.
No, yeah. I don't have an Instagram account. I don't have a Facebook page. I don't have any of those things. Twitter. I don't do any of those things. I just do this because it's fun.
Yeah, and
Right.
we're going to try a lot of that. Thank goodness, as I said, my wife is a tech person, so she understands how a lot of that stuff works. And we got a drone, so
Oh, wow. Cool.
I'll send you a drone snapshot
Yeah.
that
Good.
we have.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting an
Okay.
update on your
Yeah,
travels and your
that'd be
progress.
great. Yeah,
It's a
we'll keep in
pleasure.
touch. All
Yeah.
right.
Thanks,
Hey,
Mike.
Bella,
Yep.
Bela, I got to remember that. So thank you very much. You have a good day.
Yep. Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, folks. I hope you enjoyed that interview I just did with Mike. I thought he was a really interesting guest. We went on for a bit, two sailboat owners can chit chat for quite a while. I really thank you for listening, of course. And we now have a Patreon page. So if you are so inclined to support the podcast, that's greatly appreciated. Just go to patreon.com/sailingtheeast. And that'll get you to our Patreon page. It's nothing fancy or elaborate like most things about this podcast. But if you'd like to support it, that would be wonderful. And also, we're always interested in your comments and or suggestions for the podcast. And you can email us at sailingtheeast@gmail.com. So thanks again for listening. We really appreciate it. And see you all soon.